the intro?
Everybody go up and down.
All right. The Trequartista podcast. I'm Giuseppe La Rocca, joined by Mike Torres, who's back, and Noah Curtis. How we doing, boys?
I'm doing good. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing well.
You're good as well.
We also have producer Brother Anthony, who, stick your hand out and say hello.
Put a hand
there
in
he
there.
is.
There
We
it is.
got the
Couple
fingers.
Nice.
Kind of exciting week, right? International break. We saw a lot of teams play. We saw the Italian national team play. A lot of Italian players that we were kind of excited to see. Graziano Pelle. I know that's one of your players.
It's my new favorites.
One of your new favorites, and we'll get to that. We'll also talk about some of the players that maybe weren't there. I wonder who the elephant in the room. Exactly. We'll talk a little bit about Mario Balotelli, his future with the Italian national team, and maybe a little bit about his performance with Liverpool thus far. We also have Julian Cardillo joining us from Soccerly.com, Boston.com. New England Soccer Today also contributes to Mondo Goal, which is a site that we frequented pretty often during the World Cup. I've been meaning to do it during Serie A, but
Yeah.
won a pretty penny on Mondo Goal during the World Cup.
Well, I mean, don't
It's a
brag
good
about it.
How you guys doing?
Doing good. It's good to be back.
Yeah? Ready to talk some Serie A?
Yeah.
What about you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing well.
All right, well, let's get right into it. Let's start with the Italian national team. 2 matches this past week. The first against Azerbaijan, where they won 2-1. 2 goals by Chiellini and an own goal by Chiellini as well. So Chiellini was all over the
All the
score
goals,
sheet.
yeah. All the goals.
And today yesterday they played Malta to a 1-0 victory with Graziano Pelle getting his first international goal in his first international appearance. So, look, what are your takeaways kind of from the matches? Obviously, the scorelines were tight for whatever the opposition was, Azerbaijan and Malta. You'd expect the scorelines to be a little bit more in favor of Italy. Any takeaways from you for the match?
I mean, I don't think it was the best displays, but at this time, I mean, it's a new manager for the national team. Conte is kind of getting his feet wet a little bit with the group, and they've been choppy and changing some of the players. Obviously, some of those guys who are in that World Cup squad that were a little disappointing aren't there right now. I think this is just an awkward time to have international games anyway. Like, players trying to get into the swing of a club season, you call them away. It wasn't great, but look, ultimately the most important thing is to get 6 points from the 2 games. That's obviously what everybody would expect. They came away with the 6 points. Not time to worry about the performances obviously yet, but I'm sure everybody that watches those games knows they're gonna have to do better down the line. But
absolutely, I think Italy did well controlling the match. Right, you look at the possession numbers; it's mostly all in favor of Italy. Most of the chances they had as well. Attacking wise, I really didn't see much there. I know Graziano Pelle got in the mix, and Ciro Immobile seemed like he was, the number 1 striker for Antonio Conte. I just didn't see a lot. It seems like Italy, they still don't have that player to take on defenders, to be a little bit dangerous in the box. And you have Immobile and Graziano Pelle, and I don't want to say they're similar. They played well off each other a little bit, but not as much movement with the ball. I mean, great off the ball movement, but it seemed like Italy was trying to find where those holes were in, the Maltese or the Azerbaijan defense, and it just wasn't there. It was almost a little forced in the attack. For me, the biggest question with Italy, and I mean, this goes back to the World Cup too, who are your wingers, right? I mean, you have Antonio Candreva, who seems like he's half the player he is, or that we see at Lazio, right? Maybe it's because he's out of position.
I think that's a system thing.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
That's really the question. I think for the team is that you said this a little bit at the beginning of this year too. One of the differences you saw between Juve last year under Antonio Conte and Juve this year under Allegri was a little bit more freedom in the final third. And so I'm not totally surprised that we haven't seen Italy be this flowing, intricate passing team that picks people apart in the final third. It's not really the system that they're going to be playing. The movement off the ball is, I think, a good sign, because I think that's where Italy's going to try to get their goals, is from these guys making intelligent runs. They have the midfielders to play intelligent passes into space behind defenders. Didn't happen in these two games, but I think, again, you look at who you're playing. You're playing two teams that they're not planning on scoring goals against them. They're going to be extremely organized. There's going to be people behind the ball. And it's an Italy team with players like Pelé or Immobile that haven't played together at this level, haven't played together in these games. They looked that way. They looked a little disjointed at times. I wouldn't be too worried about that. I think the question is going to be, just as it is with any new national team managers, you get into a new national team cycle here after a World Cup. Is there a change in the system coming? What new players are going to be in? What new players are going to, what old players are going to be out? And how is that going to affect how the team plays going forward? The system, to me, seems like it's going to not be too dissimilar from how Italy played originally. So to me, it's not a surprise to not see them that. The times Italy have been that kind of flowing, creative team, look at the players, the individuals that have been there, whether it's Roberto Baggio or Francesco Totti or whoever. Those are individuals that are just are for lack of a better term, flair players. Yeah. And Italy don't really have a flair player right now that's gonna do those things. No,
and they really haven't had that player.
Totti,
right?
I mean,
Totti, you could argue, was kind of the last one.
That's what I was.
But my question, and it looks like, in terms of like set pieces, in terms of getting their head on the ball, Immobile, Graziano Pellè, even the center backs, when they kind of attack forward, we saw Chiellini and Bonucci with crossbars. They do. And it seems like, just like the issue with the World Cup, I thought with Italy, those wingers aren't decisive enough. They're not putting in nice crosses. They're not taking players on around the box. It just seems really par for the course. And I think that's going to be an issue. Who do you play there, right? Is it really Candreva, who's pretty much out of position? Pasquale, Darmian, even, I mean, he's playing at the outside back, but these aren't players really that do well on the flanks for me, or seem to kind of own that position with the national team. So going forward, that's my biggest question. Great. It seems like the midfield is pretty set, right? We'll talk about Pirlo and Verratti and the future there a little bit on that Paolo Bandini article that I'm sure a lot of people read. And defensively, we know what the Italian core is, right? It's kind of that Juve block of Chiellini, Chiellini, Bonucci, and then it's kind of
interchangeable. I mean, I don't think you need to worry too much about
but the wingers, to me, that's what the question mark is, and that was a question mark at the World Cup.
You look at just the way the global kind of way of the game is going is there is a little bit more of an emphasis for teams on getting players wide. I mean, we see that 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3 being played quite a bit, where there's wide players that get out to the touchlines. And one of the reasons that is because you stretch out backlines, you stretch defenses, and you stretch midfields out, which allows players that are quick and capable of taking people on to get to bylines, or it allows you to play the ball back in and play with less numbers in the central midfield. That's where Italy obviously could run into trouble. A good team could kind of take advantage of them by keeping the game extremely narrow, and that could be a problem. So I mean, I think that's a valid concern. But every team has their weaknesses. I think, to me, I'd rather see Italy emphasize on playing people. Gotta keep the streak alive.
Yeah, no, you gotta.
I think I'd rather see them play to their strengths, and I don't want to see them try to fit in these players that aren't traditional wingers necessarily, and try to make them into that. You know what I mean? I'd rather see them play with their best players. Look, you don't have to have these great wingers. The movement off the ball and the ability to play through the center with some of their midfield players, I don't think that's going to be a problem for them in a lot of games. Do you need people to keep to stay wide? Yes, that they can put people out there. I think that's okay. What I don't want them to see is putting people out there. I mean, I think they played Insigne out there a little bit in the world. I mean, you saw what happened when they did that. Those players are not going to do anything.
It's a bit awkward.
Play these wingbacks wider or push them farther up the field, and I think that you get similar results with a better ability to defend as well than those other players will give you.
Yeah, I think that's a question mark. I think it's great to see players like Graziano Pellè, who's it's a little late in his career, get the nod and start performing well for the national team. Ciro Immobile, like I mentioned, he looks to be that guy for Conte, right? That the attacker that Conte kind of wants to build around, and that makes a lot of sense because I think he might be the best Italian attacker out there. But there's got to be more, I think. And then you start looking around Serie A, looking around just at Italian players, and you have Mattia Destro, who does well, who's done well with AS Roma this past season. Balotelli, who will bring up, and.
Giuseppe Rossi.
So here's the thing, right? When I'm talking about players that can go one-on-one with a defender, that can be dangerous around the box and not just in the box, Giuseppe Rossi is always that ace in the hole for Italy, right? But with these injuries, it's just not a guarantee anymore, right? Before, it was nice saying, hey, when Giuseppe Rossi gets back, this is a player that we need to. Exactly. And imagine him with Immobile. It seems like a decent pairing. But with these injuries, with his, I guess, recent misfortune, I don't even want to call it recent. It's just been misfortune. It's no guarantee that he'll be putting on that Azzurri shirt.
If anything, you got to think the odds are probably not
absolutely.
I think you're absolutely right. It's the question for Italy going forward. These games against the minnows in Europe are games that you'd expect them to win. They went out and won them, so it's job done as far as I'm concerned. Conte's still figuring out who he wants in this squad, who are players that he's going to call in every time, who are guys on the bubble of being in the first team, who are the young guys that are going to come through in the next year that he can think about for the Euro. Like that's what he's thinking about. So, these games, it's whatever. That as long as you don't embarrass yourself and drop the points, it doesn't really matter for me. Like you say, the question is going to be more, what are they going to do in the attack? Defensively, the teams, I don't think, going to have too much of a problem. I'd be surprised if they did. Central midfield, again, I'd be surprised if there were a lot of issues there for them at the next major tournament. But up top, that's where it's going to decide, is Italy going to be a contender to try to win it, or are they going to be an also-ran? That's where it is. And they need a lot. I think there is a lot of pressure on Immobile to really go to his next level of development. I think going to Dortmund, as much as it's a shame to see him outside of Italy, Dortmund's a team that could really help his development.
Absolutely.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
No, it wasn't. Exactly.
Great
this is a building process for Italy. And Conte, 4-0 in his first 4 starts. So Rome wasn't built in a day. So, whoever said that.
But they've got a foundation.
Exactly.
The next game is going to be a very tasty one, though, as they go up against Croatia.
Right. Now that's
a big test.
Yeah. So that's going to be the test of the group.
Easily the strongest.
Well, it's the other. In all those European groups, usually there's 2 teams, and it's Italy, Croatia.
As an Italian supporter, I can only hope that they're putting in that goalie from the World Cup that they used, because that guy was terrible.
World Cup team.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I noticed Conte did, it wasn't exclusive to me. I think everybody noticed it. Was he used Sebastian Giovinco as one of those center mids in the 3-5-2, almost acting as that seam between the attackers and the midfielders, right? Now, Conte's had Giovinco at Juventus the last 3 years. He never tried that out at Juventus, but it seemed to be working. Giovinco found a lot of space in the trequartista area, you could say, or the area between the attack and
the name of the show.
Yeah, between the attack and the midfield. And it seemed to really work for him. Do you think that maybe Giovinco, he's not the type of player for that second striker role that he's traditionally been in?
I don't think so at all. I think we've had some fun with Giovinco on the show for the listeners that have been with us long term. But in truth, I think
we're talking about you.
We're talking about you,
right.
John.
Go ahead.
But I think. I think there is something to be said for the fact that I don't know if any managers have really figured out his best position. I don't know if this is his best position, but I do think that this is a place where he could really excel. He's going to have the ability. He's decent keeping the ball. He's a pretty good passer of the ball. He's good at finding those intricate short passes, and he's not a terrible finisher. And I think that playing that role really helps him, especially because, that's something that I think you could argue when you play that 3-5-2. There's no doubt that, whether, like you said, we'll bring up Pirlo, whether Pirlo is going to be in the plans going forward.
The Pirlo question.
The Pirlo question. But Verratti, we know, is going to be there.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, and Verratti is someone that likes to sit back a little farther. What can happen, what you don't want to run into, obviously, is that disconnect between Immobile and whoever else up top and Verratti and whoever else is back here. The farther away they are, the less likely you're going to be able to get them to connect with each other on these passes. Giovinco is somebody that can occupy another midfielder or maybe pull a defender out of position. And I like that because I think the last thing that you want for Italy is to play with Giovinco as a withdrawn forward. I mean, they already have enough trouble getting people up towards the box. I felt like as it is, especially at the World Cup, you don't need a withdrawn forward. You need another forward up there, another one up there, and allow Giovinco to play off of those two.
Yeah,
I think that's something that could be potentially something to look to see more of.
Absolutely. And, now that I think about it, the way that Conte used Giovinco was similar to how he used Giaccherini at Juventus. Now, Giaccherini's a player who didn't make the World Cup squad, right? Didn't have the best of years at Sunderland, but he's a Conte guy, right? This is a guy that Conte loves.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a potential player that you could bring up to the national team. And not saying that he'll, create fireworks, but we saw what he was able to do in the Confederations Cup, and he definitely had a better tournament than, we thought he would, right? So, I don't know. It's
something to think
Look,
about.
here's my take on Giovinco. You get something that I feel like the producer's not into. My thing on Giovinco is I really hope he succeeds in some way, right? I feel like over the last 10 years in Italy, we're just waiting for that phenomenal, right? That 40 classe player, right? That next Totti, that next Del Piero, whatever. I don't think Giovinco's it, but he was touted as it. He was the person we thought was going to be
it was a little bit unfair. A little bit unfair.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're shit. Absolutely. I mean, like in Giovinco's case, I don't know if I want to say he's shit, but he isn't the player that we hoped he would be. And you can go right down the line, right? I mean, I remember people talking about Morfeo as the next Italy number 10. People have those hopes for Insigne.
That happens.
As well.
That happens for every
right.
I remember I remember they were talking about Hugo Viana was gonna be the next great European player, let alone the next great Portuguese player. You know what I mean? It's happens all the time. I mean, he made the mistake going to Newcastle. That's what really. But I mean that happens all the time. Giovinco's a player with some skill. I do think that if you put him on a a mid. Second tier Serie A team, he excel for them. He's not a bad player. He can play for Juventus. He's a useful piece on the team.
Absolutely.
It's like they did when he was over in Parma on loan or whatever. He excel.
Absolutely. And that year at Parma,
supposedly Barca were calling after that.
Supposedly the Barca front office was just knocking at
scouting those Parma games.
I mean, I doubt that, but hey, whatever.
I think their flight got rerouted from somewhere in there. We might as well go to a game.
Yeah, he got the logos confused. It was actually Basel who was calling Giovinco. Confusing, I know. Same acronym, whatever, or abbreviation. It's just Giovinco isn't the player that we were hoping for, but.
Maybe for Basel.
It's not like his career's over, right? And I saw a lot of positive things.
If he carves himself a role with the national team in this spot,
and we definitely
maybe another club team besides Juve does say maybe we could use that.
Well, here's the thing Giovinco has going for him is that Conte is the national team manager. Look, he's barely played this season for Juventus, right? He's a third, maybe fourth. Probably fourth option for Juventus off the bench.
Well, I mean, there's only so much time that you have, for Juventus to go around. You know what I mean? So
absolutely,
it's one of those things.
There's a producer when we need him. So it's one of those things that we hope he does well, but
whatever.
But let's talk about. I said the elephant in the room.
Well, I think there might be two elephants in the room.
Tell us the second one that maybe isn't as obvious.
Well, the Pirlo one, I was going to say that's kind of an elephant in the room too.
What do you think about this Pirlo situation?
I think short term, it's nice to have a player of his caliber to call in if you need him and have him play. But I don't know if I would go as far as Paulo Bandita in his article, which was kind of saying it was damaging the long term future for the club. I mean, not the club, sorry.
Yeah, and to be fair, I mean, his headline stated that, but he's actually
no. But I don't think it's necessarily helpful for the development of Verratti and some of these other players when Pirlo is going to be there. My thing is, I guess I would say this: if you talk about bringing Pirlo in, he has to be at the Euro then.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You can't play him for some of these qualifiers and then be like, nah.
So I'm
not going to bring him. If you're bringing him in now and he's going to play 2 or 3 games, he's got to be there next because.
Why bring him for an Azerbaijan qualifier?
Exactly. Right? And so, look, I'm not even really knocking that as a bad idea. I think Pirlo's a team guy. If they said, look, you're not going to start, but we're going to have you, and if we need, you know what I mean? I think he would be okay with that role. My thing is, at some point, I think Marco Verratti has the potential to be a world-class player, and I want to see him be the guy.
Yeah, and I don't think there's any question that that's the guy of the future, right? That's the center midfielder of the future.
So I want to see that. I think it does behoove Italy to want to see that sooner rather than later.
Do you think that that's why Antonio Conte brought Pirlo in, right? It's not like Verratti. First off, Verratti's younger than all of us here, right? Very young player. He didn't have a whole lot of experience with Pirlo besides that World Cup. And they're really trying to develop him to be that, Pirlo of the future. Do you think it's maybe the idea of Conte to have Pirlo mentor Verratti or give Verratti 2 more years with Pirlo? Do you think that's detrimental to Verratti, or do you think that's kind of what?
I don't know if it's necessarily detrimental, but I do think that there is something to be said for if every time Verratti's going out there and playing competitive game for Italy, he has this person next to him. I think just when you have a player like Pirlo, there's a safety blanket out there for him. You know what I mean? If there's an issue that you have,
Pirlo
that guy
is Conte's safety blanket, absolutely.
And that's my. It's not even a worry, but I think it's. I'd like to see. I want to see what Verratti can do, when you give him the keys to the midfield and say that we want you to be the director of this whole thing. Here's the thing. And to me, games against Azerbaijan, that's the time to do it. If it's me, I don't want to see. What I don't want to see is. I don't want to see Pirlo be in these qualifiers and then have him be like, we need to go younger for the Euro. We're not going to bring him. Because I think then you're throwing Verratti into an even worse situation, right?
Absolutely.
Now, if the plan is, because my thing is, look, and Pirlo is still, on his day, a world-class player, but there's no denying that he is an older guy that to me, if you look at 2 years ago and the year he had for Juve and you look at him now, I don't think he's even now the same player. I don't think that you could argue how much the Juve midfield has relied on him is decreasing, by the game, and so I think is he gonna we're talking a little under 2 years, and this guy has to go play a major international tournament. I don't know if I think he's gonna be a huge asset to them there.
I hear what you're saying, and I think that Conte's plan obviously is maybe to have him at the World Cup. Look, it's just another roster, the Euro Cup. It's another roster spot, but it's Andrea Pirlo, right? Nothing's a guarantee, though.
No.
Things might change in a year. Things might change in 2 years.
And he has to earn his spot like anybody else. But all I'm saying is, and this is just one time, but if Pirlo wants to play for the national team, who can blame him? Obviously, if Conte wants him, I don't even really blame him. But I do think all they got to do is be mindful of what that does to the development of Verratti, because it slows it down.
Mike, what do you think?
I mean, I think like you said, he's Conte's safety net. I mean, they had a lot of injuries going into this international break. De Rossi, Verratti had an ankle issue for that first game. And, I think it's just convenience. I think they're going to bring him on. It's just like, they're more in a pinch, really. They'd rather bring up someone experienced than take a risk. And you said these games were close enough as it is. I think it was a good move. And, I think it will, in the end, kind of better the development of Verratti if he's at least there and training and whatnot. I highly doubt he's going to start. I doubt he's going to start half the qualifiers for Italy. But I think, in an injury pinch, like it's a good call.
Fair enough.
I don't think he will be there in the Euro, but you still have the season after this one to even see how much he's even going to be playing at that point.
Or if he's going to be at Juve.
Absolutely.
Well, it doesn't matter where he is.
No, yeah, but I think, look,
it might have something to do with it.
I think it does to a degree. If he's not, let's say he's not playing in Italy anymore. I mean, what if these rumors are true and he's playing in Major League Soccer in a year? I mean, do you think Italy's going to call him into the Euro to be after he plays?
I think that
in
that
March
does play a
I mean,
factor.
I'm not saying they would or they wouldn't. I'm just saying that, like you said, it's a long way away. This may even be a complete non-issue, but I do think that they just do need to be mindful. Verratti's a special talent, and there's nothing wrong with having Pirlo be there with him. But if you have the safety blanket with him for these qualifiers, and then all of a sudden you don't bring him to this tournament, and you throw Verratti in the first game against whoever, and you're like, all right, bud, good luck. Like, I think it does affect him a little bit more.
Absolutely.
And these games, those tournaments are do or die. If you lose the first game, it can ruin the whole thing. I do think that that's something just to consider. Doesn't mean that they shouldn't do it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you who's not the next Pirlo, and that's Aquilani. And I don't know how he keeps getting call-ups. I have no idea how he keeps getting call-ups.
Conte nudes.
Conte, maybe it's like a fappening type thing. I have no idea why Aquilani is still getting these call-ups. Anthony, do you have any idea?
I have no idea.
No idea, right?
It's terrible.
It's terrible.
That's terrible.
It's terrible.
Let's move to the biggest or the big exclusion.
The bigger elephant.
The bigger elephant, I guess. Balotelli or no Balotelli with the Italian national team. Now, this isn't the second time. This is the second time that Conte has excluded Balotelli. The first time, maybe you could argue that Balotelli's moving to England. It was an interesting time. It was the first week of the season. But now the second round of call-ups here and no Balotelli. What do you think of this move by Antonio Conte excluding Balotelli from the national team?
Balotelli's got to be a little hard done, seeing as the time Giovinco's had. But because Balotelli's probably started just about every game for Liverpool, but I mean, he's not performing.
Well, I mean, Liverpool's not doing so hot right now.
No respect the rules.
Now that's the issue, right? What was that?
No.
No respect the rules.
Now, the thing about Balotelli is his discipline, right? We saw it with the national team in the World Cup. You hear Berlusconi coming out this week and saying that he was a rotten apple at Milan and he actually didn't want to buy Balotelli. I mean, that might all
He says
be
that now, but
exactly.
He was praising him for the.
But anyway, it looks to be a serious issue with Balotelli. Do you think that Conte wants basically to set a precedent here? He wants to say, hey, it's going to be my way and that's it.
I don't know. I don't know how much of the bad, like, rotten apple thing, I believe, like the turmoil in the locker room. I don't know. I just think maybe it's strictly performance based. He hasn't really earned his way onto that team. I mean,
Absolutely.
he's not performing at the level he should be. I don't know if it's because he's not getting to take the PKs to boost his confidence over there.
Yeah. One of the things that bothered me, Mike, during this World Cup, and it might have to do with Balotelli's Puma deal, I think, but it almost seemed like Balotelli was marketed and spoken of higher than the Italian national team. And it's something that really sat with, like, it just didn't sit well with me.
Well, that's from our side. That's from watching it here. I'm sure.
What do you mean?
If you watch,
You're saying that Balotelli is a more marketable Italian player in the United States.
in the United States.
I would
yeah.
agree with you.
I'm sure if you
You
watch
don't
it
think-
over there,
I think if you asked an American soccer fan who's the player on the Italian national team, Balotelli would be the first name they would say.
Yeah, but wouldn't
Maybe Pirlo, but
you
probably
wouldn't
Balotelli.
argue that any other country, maybe besides Italy, would say that as well?
I think no. I would say in Europe, I think a lot of people would pick someone like Buffon or
Oh, yeah,
Pirlo over.
Buffon
I mean, or
and
even
Pirlo.
I still think it's Balotelli.
Even
He's-
Derossi would be picked up.
he's-
Balotelli's the most. Now, if you're talking about like the most recognizable name, I think Mario Balotelli
Look,
is absolutely. the most
Regardless, I think we put such an emphasis on Balotelli going into that World Cup. And
recognizable. Too much.
way too much emphasis. And people were asking the question, can Italy do it without Balotelli? Are they Balotelli dependent? That should never be the case, right? For any
Certainly
team.
not.
No team should be Balotelli dependent. And I think what Conte's done here is basically said, hey, look, to be on this national team, you have to earn these colors. You have to earn this shirt. Balotelli definitely didn't earn it in this past
I don't know
World
if I
Cup, right?
agree with that though.
Well, how don't
because
you agree?
Because Giovinco, what has Giovinco done to earn the shirt?
He still has time.
He still has time to earn it. Oh,
Well-
so for Giovinco, it's more on credit. Like he's
I mean,
given.
what-
he's
No.
fronting- He's fronting a
This
game.
is what I think about Giovinco. Giovinco has. What's that?
I think this is what I think about it.
But Giovinco had that time with Conte. Conte
right,
had
well,
3
that's-
years
right,
of seeing.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that I think for Conte, it's of course you want to earn your way into the team, but I think just like any manager, this isn't a knock on him, but just like any manager, you have your guys that you trust. Whether that's because they're good in the locker room, they're good in training, they're team guys.
What do you
or-
mean good in the locker room? No, I'm just kidding.
But do you know what I mean? I think look, you trust Giovinco. He knows what he's going to get, right?
Yeah.
There's not,
And he knows he works hard.
and right, and so, but I think so. But I don't think it's anything about earning your way onto the team through merits of playing well. Giovinco's not barely played. I mean, it has nothing to
Well,
do
no,
with
let
that.
me ask you
I
this.
think it has everything to do with the inconsistency you get from Mario Balotelli
Absolutely.
on the playing field and also off the playing field. You know, and that's to me the strict reason. Mario Balotelli is a good enough player that if he was in form, there's no doubt that he would be in the team. It's not even a question.
Here's my argument. What have we talked about with Graziano Pellè, Immobile, a lot of the strikers that Conte brings in? These guys work off the ball.
Right,
They're
that's
finding
true.
runs. They're
That's
finding space. And that was Balotelli's biggest knock in the World Cup, right? Does nothing off the ball, wants it at its feet. And it seems like Conte's come in and brought in the players that will work off the ball, that will kind of go, I hate to use this cliche, but the extra mile, I guess.
I think that's true. All I'm saying is that I don't think that this is some big statement about Mario Balotelli is not allowed on the team or anything like that. I think it's strictly Conte saying, look, you know, he's not in form, and I don't know what type of guy I'm going to get. Is he going to show up and be – because I think as far as the bad apple comments go, look, one, he was on a team, I'm assuming, of just rotten apples last year anyway. The whole team was rotten.
Yeah.
There. So to single him out is just complete. He's just being a scapegoat for that. But I do think that you got to think at some point where there's some smoke, there's some fire. And we've heard multiple times that he has had issues off the field. I think after a while you have to realize, like, there's probably been some issues off the field. I think he's the type of guy that if things are going bad, he's not going to be the guy to pull the locker room together and get him out of that. That's just not what he's going to do. I think Conte's the new guy. He wants to come in, establish a good culture on this team, get a foundation, and that's part of the reason that guys like Giovinco are there is because he knows what they're going to do off the field. It has nothing to do with
some sort of a tone, though, right?
Oh, sure. But I think that's the reason that they're there. And ultimately, Balotelli will have his opportunity to get back in the team if he plays well for his club team. And when he comes into a squad that's together.
Absolutely. We have Julian Cardillo, soccerly.com, boston.com, New England Soccer Today, also contributes to Mondo Goal. He's coming up after the break. He'll be discussing AS Roma this season. He's a specialist in AS Roma and lived in Roma. So really excited to hear from him. Stick around after the break. We'll get to that and we'll talk a little bit more Serie A. Guest on the show tonight, Julian Cardillo, You may know him from Soccerly.com, Boston.com, also contributes to New England Soccer Today. Also Mondogol, which we've talked about on the podcast before. Julian, thanks for coming on.
Hi, great to be on. Thanks for having me.
For sure. Let's talk Roma, right? That's your specialty. That's your bread and butter. Let's talk about their performance against Juve. I know that by at this point, it's almost a week and a half since the match. But what were some of your takeaways from the match, besides all of the controversy that kind of ensued?
Well, I mean, it's certainly a match that any soccer fan, regardless of league they follow, is going to circle on their calendar. I certainly circled it on mine. If you can believe it, my family, they're a Juventus family, but I lived in Rome for about 4 months, and so I became a Roma fan. So I like both sides, which is very rare in Italian soccer. I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was good end-to-end stuff. I think both teams showed that they're at the top of the table for a reason. I don't really see any team, even some of the more popular, higher end teams, the Milans, the Napoli, the Inter. I don't see either of those teams really holding a candle to either Roma or Juventus this season anyway. I think both teams have tremendous depth, and I think it showed. The one thing that Roma is lacking that Juventus has is a young scorer who can get you just buckets and buckets of goals. And, even though Tevez' goals are both from the penalty spot, I mean, he's proving early in the season, and he did, obviously in that game with Roma, that he is that guy, that he can put in more than 15, 20 goals in a season. And it's a tough act to follow for Roma.
Do you think Mattia Destro could evolve into that guy?
I think absolutely, but you have an Argentinian in Destro and an Italian an Argentinian in Tevez and an Italian in Destro, and two very different styles of play. I think the transition is more seamless for Tevez just because Argentinian style is very silky and smooth. The Italian style, even though it's gotten more, it's evolved more, it's still based, I think, a lot off the catenaccio. And I think Destro, on the team he's on right now, they're all those moving parts are doing a very specific job. And I think it's going to be difficult for him to evolve past, the poacher. I think he needs to improve his skills in the box, because as many beautiful goals as he has scored, he's squandered a few chances, whereas a player like Tevez, doesn't make those mistakes. And Tevez has been that way since he was a younger guy. Destro's still young, but he certainly, like you said, he has more growing up to do. And you'd like to see him become more of a poacher, more Tevez-esque.
No, you bring up a good point. I mean, even if you watch the national team matches the past week, it doesn't seem like Italy has really a striker who's good at, one-on-one opportunities against the defense, dangerous around the box, really. You have those poachers, you have those, I guess, kind of classic finishers, but not kind of the same characteristics of Tevez. So just going back to the match for a second, do you think Roma outplayed Juve in a certain area of the match?
I would say that. I think, well, first of all, let me just put it out there publicly that I think Roma's wings are the best wings in the world. And I think they know that. They're aware of it. They want to use that speed, use that dynamic play. And I think you sensed a lot that Gervinho and Iturbe, they wanted that joy going up and down those flanks. So I think that they destroyed Juventus on the flanks. And the problem is, Juventus has basically a monopoly on the entire Italian defense, which is one of the best in the world. So, while they can outplay them in that part of the field, I think Juve won the battle by, not only defending them reasonably well, but also having a defender in Bonucci score the winning goal.
Absolutely. And there's no question that Juventus made some second-half adjustments to kind of limit that wing play from Gervinho and Juan Iturbe. Just some differences that you see from last season to this one, aside from obviously, Manolas, Iturbe, the players coming in. Anything noticeable on the field that you can point to?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing I noticed this year is that, with more depth, I think Rudy Garcia is more comfortable experimenting with that midfield triangle. He seems very happy to play that hybrid 4-3-3 formation. Last season, we pretty much always saw the Pjanic, De Rossi, and Strootman combination. And obviously, this year we've seen some Keita, seen some De Rossi. Paredes has seen some good action. Nainggolan has seen some good action. And obviously, you attribute some of this to injuries and wear and tear. But a lot of this is depth, and it's important because this is a team that's playing in Serie A and Champions League and Coppa Italia. They're dealing with all sorts of international call-ups. And so, my sentiment on this is that it's absolutely great that Rudy Garcia can have the confidence to play a whole series of, players from different nationalities, different ages, different styles of play and get these results. Yes, they lost to Juve, but they easily could have tied or won that match. And so what has to be refreshing for them, and for me as someone who's followed them for the past few years, is that, this year for the first time, they seem to have a midfield where every player is on the same page.
Absolutely. And you brought up Kevin Strootman. He's still recouping from his injury, but it seems like he's starting to practice. What happens when they slot him into the midfield now? Who kind of gets shifted, I guess, to the bench?
Well, I think Strootman is in for a pretty uphill battle because, he hasn't played since last spring. I think it's going to take him a long time to readjust. He's not just going to come in and play the full 90. And, truth be told, I think players like Nainggolan have been really a revelation. Simply because they're just him especially, so end to end, helps out on defenses, can be a playmaker, can score goals. Obviously, this is all stuff that vintage Kevin Strootman does, but you don't ever want to take out a player unless it's absolutely necessary. Going back to what I said about how every midfielder is on the same page, I don't think Rudy Garcia is going to make some of these decisions, to change up the lineup unless it's absolutely necessary.
Right.
Thankfully for him, when it has been necessary, it's panned out and worked out very well. But I anticipate Strootman coming back very slowly. And honestly, if he's not back 100% and he himself and his agent and the coaches feel like, the environment has outlived him, they may look to deal him. There seems to be plenty of sides, or at least one in Manchester United that wants to snag him.
For sure. Now, one of the biggest questions going into the season for Roma was how will they do with that added Champions League schedule? 2 matches, a 5-1 victory over CSKA Moscow, and the 1-1 draw at City. Are you surprised with how successful they've been in Champions League thus far?
Not at all. I think that, I didn't quite expect them to destroy and dismantle CSKA Moscow the way they did. But, then again, they are at home. Rome is a very difficult place to play. It can be a very inhospitable environment for visiting teams. I'm actually not surprised at all by the Man City result, and I'll tell you why. Essentially, this Man City team is one that really consistently underwhelms in Champions League.
Sure.
I think that there are just so many lapses on this team, and I don't know if it's the players themselves that know that they're so good on paper that they have something to prove, or if it's just fatigue and a loss of focus after competing in the EPL. But this team just consistently doesn't show its A game at the Champions League level, and their lone goal was a PK, and I think giving Totti that kind of space for him to score that goal, for the goalkeeper to be off his line, the way he was, that entire goal. I mean, no real team, which on paper should be contending for a Champions League title, should allow that kind of goal. I mean, mistakes happen, but in credit to Roma, they took it well. Totti had a great strike, but for a team of Man City's caliber, these results shouldn't be happening, and they do happen. And when they do, so often, you're not exactly as surprised as you were, say 2-3 years ago when it first started.
Absolutely. Julian, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Great having you on. We're going to have to have you on again, seeing as you're from Boston. You're basically down the street, and we'll have to get a live appearance from you sometime. Julian Cardillo, you can find him at Soccerly, Boston.com. New England Soccer Today, also contributes to Mondogol, and you can just find him on Twitter. I'm sure he tweets pretty often, at Julian Cardillo. Thanks again, Julian.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Take care. Julian Cardillo, specialist, NAS Roma, also New England Revolution, too, for our fans out there who are interested in the MLS or specifically the New England Revolution. Julian Cardillo, top-notch, really great writer. Yeah.
All right, so let's get into this weekend's fixtures real quick. Coming back from an international break, should be pretty interesting. But Roma and Juve both have games on Saturday, and both probably a little bit of a gift game. Juve going up against Sassuolo, last place in Serie A. Should be good for them. Hopefully it's not a trap game or anything.
At the Stadio d'Italia, though, right? At the Stadio Nazionale, Sassuolo. I mean, it could be a test for them, right? A lot of players coming back from international duty.
Maybe I'm a pessimist, but I mean, I don't think they're going to have a chance to beat Juve in this game.
I'm not a pessimist. I'm an optometrist.
Absolutely.
And then Roma going up against Chievo at home. I don't think they'll have any issues there.
Well, we can expect a very boring Chievo team. That's the only guarantee I can make.
Really get ready to tune in for that one.
Dude, that team just they put me to sleep since 2001. I swear to God. Just the most boring team out there. Anyway, sorry.
Chievo, helping you sleep since 2001.
Yeah, exactly. Chievo fans, you talk to a Chievo fan, so well rested. So well rested.
No crow's feet at all.
Nothing like that.
Never see crow's feet.
Oh, absolutely.
They're sponsored by NyQuil.
Yeah, NyQuil should definitely look into that. What do we got?
So, nice early fixture, 6:30 Eastern time. Fiorentina is going up against Lazio.
Oh, we're gonna wake up for that? Yeah, 1 sec. We'll catch that. We'll catch a repeat of that fucking game.
90 and 30 that one on BM. But
Let's hope so.
at 9 a.m. Verona against Milan. That should be pretty good. It's 5-6 right there.
Yeah.
Verona.
Milan have been good.
Credit to Verona
Verona
for
look good.
continuing their run of success. Right, last year they were just out of the European places. This year they're up there again.
Yeah, playing well.
Yeah, Mandolini's definitely doing something right.
Yeah. That
Verona.
should be a pretty entertaining. There could be some goals in that game.
There could be. There might not be.
Maybe not.
It's one of those things.
Yeah.
And then the late afternoon, 2:45, Inter against Napoli.
Is that Torres' pick of the week right there?
Give us the Torres pick of the week.
Yeah. What do we got to look out for?
I don't know if I call it a pick of the week. They're both
Ooh.
two teams that have kind of been just kind of hanging in there, like they just really haven't been up to their potential.
But a
this
loss
year.
in this game for one of those teams could really send them into a death spiral.
Yeah.
It could. I mean, if Inter,
It could. That's the beauty of it. Could. It might.
I mean, if Napoli beat Inter at home, I mean, they'll be throwing question marks in the air. Could
Mazzarri is definitely on the hot seat, and we're not talking about an Audi or a Lexus or a BMW.
Like not one of the heated
leather
seats.
seat.
Yeah, not a heated seat.
We're talking about
Hot seat.
Yeah, exactly.
Like when you get in your car and the sun's been beating down on the seat. It's that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, exactly.
It'll toast your buns.
Or like when you're on I don't know, when you're at a movie theater. Movie theater is a bad example.
Yeah, I've never had that happen.
When you're at your friend's house and the couch, your friend's been sitting on the couch, they go up to get a drink and you sit in your friend's spot and the warmth from your friend, I don't know about you, turns me off. Don't like it.
You don't like it.
Why are you taking a seat?
That's a good question.
Now you get things turned
Yeah,
right.
you're
back on
splitting hairs.
And that's about it for
and that's
interesting matches.
that's all she wrote.
Inter Napoli. It's going to be one hell of a match. Mazzarri faces his former team.
That's a Mike Torres
Pick of the week.
Do we have a sound for that?
We need some
We'll
sort
get
of a
something
clip for
it.
that.
Play something. It'll be fun.
All right, look, you know what? Let's wrap this baby up. I think it's been a good show. It probably hasn't. But let's get to the grievances. Last week, we didn't really have the grievances, did we?
Cos'è diventato il calcio? Una giungla,
E
cazzo!
cosa è diventato questo podcast, really? Because we have no grievances.
Yeah. I got a grievance this week.
I got a grievance.
All right, you kick it up.
All right. I will say grievance is for PJ Ryans for holding trivia at 10 p.m.
Wow.
Explain what
Well,
PJ Ryans is to the
it's a-
lovely listeners that we
It's a
have.
pub where we do trivia on Tuesday nights. Well, it allows us to record today. 10 o'clock start time is pretty rough.
It's pretty rough for my customers tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's what it's rough.
It's always the Chievo fans that are winning because they're so well rested.
Dude, there's no way the cable fans can get out there. It's
Yeah,
way
it's-
too late.
That's true.
You want me to go?
Is
You
that
going
it?
last?
Yeah,
You
that's
going
it.
last?
Well, we cut it short
No.
and sweet.
Yeah,
We gotta get
you
to
going
trivia.
last?
Whoa. Yeah, I'm going last because I don't know.
All right, this isn't so much a grievance, but I'll play. Went with Torres last night. Went to see Gone Girl. pretty good movie. Ending was a little a little crazy for me, but on the whole, one thumb up for me.
Awesome. Whoa. Wait a
One
second.
thumb up.
One thumb up.
Yeah, not two, just one thumb.
I give it.
You have two thumbs?
Yeah, I got two thumbs.
Fuck.
8 fingers, 2 thumbs.
Oh, that's some interesting math. Look, my grievance. I went to the Topsfield Fair. For those of you guys who are away from Massachusetts, whatever. It's this fair that they have all this different food and whatnot. There was a pizza stand, right? And all they do is they sell pizza,
Is it the
right?
the garden?
I don't know
pizza?
what the hell it was. It was the grossest thing I've ever seen. Look, if you sell one thing, if that's what you do, if that's what your livelihood is, do it well. Just do pizza well. It doesn't even take that much. I'm not expecting fucking margherita from Napoli here. I'm just expecting a good slice of pizza, and your whole place says pizza. That's what you do. Do it well, Take
Was it-
Do your
time.
job.
It wasn't the garden pizza place, was it?
Mike, look, I don't want to
They
slander
cut
the place.
slices with
I don't want to slander the place. Like that's not what this
Well,
rant's about.
You don't want to
It
use
isn't.
your platform to take shots.
Exactly. This platform, I have millions of viewers and listeners, and by millions I mean
We've
3.
doubled our viewers since we started tonight, though.
We did. I'm not going to tell you what the number is, but we've
Double
we've
what we
doubled
started.
it. Look, thanks for joining us this week. Hey, we're on a streak. 2 weeks in a row. Let's be.
Let's go for 3.
Yeah, let's go for 3. Why not? Let's be consistent. It's been a pleasure. See you next week.
Take care.